how to simulate necklaces and chains using Marvelous Designer. So for this, we need two major things. We need the necklace itself that we want to simulate, and then we need a guide mesh. So I'm going to show you how to create that in Blender, then we'll move on to Marvelous Designer and do the simulations there. So first of all, first thing we're going to need is a curve, a simple circle curve, and then both the guide mesh and the necklace itself are going to go around this curve. So let's just create like a simple necklace with an icosphere. So import icosphere. Let's reduce the subdivisions. Yeah, and this is just it. So let's scale that down. This is the icosphere. And what we can do is in the modifier, add an array modifier first. Then add a curve modifier. And then select your curve. I hope you guys are getting the point now. So like this now, we have a bunch of necklaces. We can scale it down or up, anyone you want. So let's just do this. And yeah, our necklace is complete. And now we also want to create a guide mesh, which is the mesh we're actually going to simulate in Marvelous Designer. So we just need to add a simple cube first. Then go into edit mode. Let's scale it down. We need to scale the cube to fit the necklace material so that when it's simulating, it will simulate nice and well, and then it will look as if it's actually, that is what it is. So let's do that. You can see this cube is scaled down very well. Now we want to delete the both faces because we're also going to be doing the same thing we did for the icosphere with the cube. So we want to delete the face here and delete the face here so that there will not be faces in between the cubes. I don't know if that makes sense. So now we're going to add an array modifier and a curve modifier. Select the curve and you get the point. We're going to do this until it fills up again. We can even scale it down a little bit. Let's just let the cube just be touching the bounds of your actual necklace material, and that will just make everything look nice. Let's scale it down until the cube enters here. Yeah. So now we're going to apply everything that we just did now for the cube itself. So we're going to apply all the modifiers for the cube. Then we tap back into edit mode, A, and then M. We're going to merge by distance, and this is just going to remove all the in-between vertices. You can see there's some kind of in-between vertices here that we don't want. Let's just merge all these together. Let's merge this and this at center, 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 and then let's do A and merge by distance again just to make sure. Yeah, and yeah, there's nothing. So the guide mesh now, or the bounding mesh, is now properly done, and this is the mesh we're going to export into Marvelous Designer. So before you export it into Marvelous Designer, let's say you have, like, obviously you have a character you want to put it on. So let's bring it on this character I have. So we're going to carry everything up, both the binding mesh, the icosphere, and the curve. We're going to carry everything together up, and we're just going to fit it to how we want. We can scale it down, or we're going to fit it to how we want it to be at the head of this guy. So make sure it's not colliding with any part of him. So I'm just going to fit it here. We can also rotate it so it works. So just make sure you have everything selected while you are doing this. Let's apply the scale of the binding mesh because that's the one we're going to export into Marvelous Designer. So now we have the binding mesh, as we can see. We have the necklace and we have the curve, which everything is following. The curve is just to make sure everything rhymes. So now let's export the binding mesh into Marvelous Designer and then do the simulation, and then bring it back and apply that simulation onto our necklace. So the binding mesh, we select it, then we're going to export and export as an OBJ, because you can only import OBJs as cloths in Marvelous Designer and nothing else but OBJ. So we're going to export as waveform OBJ. I'm just going to export it somewhere on my desktop, and let's call it neck. Then what we want to do, we want to change the scale to 100, and we're going to see why we did that in Marvelous Designer. Also, if you don't know, I have a tutorial on how to export from Blender to Marvelous Designer and how to import back. So this scale stuff, we talk about it in that video, so you can check that video out. And yeah, that's it. Here we are in Marvelous Designer, and now I'm going to bring in our exported human as an alembic, and then the guide mesh for the necklace as an obj cloth file. So let's first bring in the human. Okay, here we have our human exported. Now let's bring in the guide mesh for the necklace. So file, import, obj to garment, very important. And then we just find where we saved our necklace file. Open, meters, change this to 1. And okay, yeah, so you can see our guide mesh for the necklace has come in, and then we have our alembic simulation here. So everything is looking nice. If we press the simulate button just to see what's going on, you can see how it falls. It falls down immediately, but it also has some rumpling. So this is where the goodness of Marvelous Designer comes in, because we can now adjust the close properties to make it make sense. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. Anyways, so we can come down here and adjust like physical properties and all. Can change all this bending, waving. But one important thing we can do straight up the bat is just to press on the guide mesh itself in Marvelous Designer, and let's go down to solidify. Yeah, sorry. Let's go down to solidify, and then you can just increase and reduce this. And this is just a simple way to like just make it add some body. You can see that now that we added solidify, you can see how it stays. It stays to its here. You can reduce the solidify, and you can see how it crumbles and stuff like that. So that's just a simple one. You can add solidify if you just add it, and now we're basically good to go. So let's bake this and take it back into Blender and do the finishing touches. So as it's resting on his neck right now, we can press to record, and that is basically it. We have it baked, and now let's export this mesh back into Blender. So file, export, and now we're going to export as an alembic. So we choose where we want to export it to. Yeah, file name, let's just call it NNN. Save, and now it's going to ask us what we want. So we want unweld or weird or weld, it doesn't really matter, you can choose anyone. Then thin, then we don't want any UV coordinates because we're not doing anything like that. Entire region, now the scale has to be on 100, and then we press OK. Here we are back in Blender. Now let's bring in the guide mesh we exported from Marvelous Designer into Blender. So as we are in Blender, let's hide this guide mesh first. Let's hide this one we have in Blender. Now let's bring in the one we just exported from Marvelous Designer. So import alembic, let's locate it, and now you can see how it is. But then we made a mistake that we're going to go back and address now in Marvelous Designer. And the mistake is that we first played the simulation. We didn't start baking from frame 0, which is the frame as he's here. This is not the frame we started baking from. We started baking when the necklace was already on his body. So I'm going to go back into Marvelous Designer and fix that up real quick. So here we are. So this is what I mean. Let's go back, and you can see this is where he actually started from. Meanwhile, when we brought it, it was actually here. So we want to start baking from here. This is where we want to start baking from. So we'll just press the bake now, and it's done. It's very, I like it as that mistake came up, because some people will be like, oh, I already pressed it, why is it not at the same angle that I left it in play? That is because you actually did bake it from the original. Well, you have already pressed, because Marvelous Designer is a garment creation software, so you first create the garment before you now bake. So you have already pressed here space bar to simulate here as if you are creating the garment before you bake. So this is just a lesson for when you want to do it. Just bake it directly from the position it's at. You can just adjust some parameters and make sure you always bake it from that base position you imported it into Marvelous Designer. So let's just do the whole export again and move into Blender. So here we are in Blender, and let's import the correct mesh now. So yeah, this is it. As you can see, it lines up with the necklace itself and the curve. So now we have the simulation of the guide mesh of the necklace, and now we want to apply this simulation to the necklace material itself. I mean the necklace object itself. So what we're going to use is a surface deform modifier. So in the necklace, you can see we still have the modifier stack. We can still leave it if we want, or we can apply them depending on you though. But I like to leave it so that it's non-destructive. I can still go back and change some things. So add modifier deform. I'm going to add a surface deform, and then we're going to choose the guide mesh we just imported. So close parent, and we're going to bind it. And now the necklace should follow the simulation of the guide mesh we just simulated in Marvelous Designer. And you can see how it is. You can see how good it looks. Now we can hide the guide mesh, and you can see that the simulation looks good. You can see how it looks good. This method can be used to simulate not just only necklaces and chains, but also bangles, beads, and stuff like that. You get the point. Anything that needs like some sort of simulation to it, any object that or accessory that needs like some sort of simulation to use, you can use this method to simulate it. And the simulation can also be done in Blender, but Blender's cloth sim is not as advanced as Marvelous Designer's own, so that's why. And that is it. That's how to simulate necklaces and chains in Marvelous Designer. If you learned something new, don't forget to subscribe. And yeah, until next time, see you. Peace. Bye.